Hello, everybody. How y'all doing today? I am here in lieu of writing because the pain in my hip is absolutely out of control today, going down my leg. So it's hard to sit up, but I'm going to do my best. I'm definitely going to be able to get through 7 games and get through any questions that people have. So I am going to get right into it. Thank you for joining me here. And let's waste little time. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I'm going to go through these games. I'm going to look first at Baltimore, New York, in case anyone's playing the showdown, even though it's not on the main slate. It's certainly possible that FanDuel has it on the main slate or Yahoo has it on the main slate. I actually don't know. So I might as well talk about it because it's close enough to the 7 o'clock games. The one thing to note is that the rain is going to be affecting New York, assuming that. The reason I'm a couple minutes late is I spend about 5-10 minutes looking at radars from different. Chi-Town Race as the best GPP stack of the day. I am definitely going to get there at the end, my friend. I want to go through the full analysis so I can explain, but I will give you a quick answer without any explanation here. Let me just do a quick look. Yeah, absolutely. No problem. My first instinct was Detroit, because I think, you know what? I think that I would say Philadelphia. I'll give you a quick reason why. I think that the rain chance is going to knock ownership lower than it should be, and Freddie Peralta is a pretty bad pitcher. He has pretty good success against righties, but I think that Rhys Hoskins is an extreme reverse guy, and Harper, as bad as he's been, he's like 4,400 or something on DK. So the risk is built into the price, and the upside is phenomenal for that price. Odubel Herrera. If they play Nick Williams, they have a few lefties there. That'll be really underowned given the weather conditions, I think. But I also think Detroit against Brad Peacock is sneaky. They haven't been great, but a few of them have been swinging pretty hot bats lately. Their total is low enough, and there are enough like really good teams like Houston that I don't think people are going to be on the other side of that game. But I think there are cheap bats there. If you want to go expensive pitching, I think that's one of the places that you're going to really need to look, because you're not going to find a lot of other stacking options today outside of that, because most of them are going against like ace pitchers that you don't really want to fuck around with. So I'm going to dive back into the first game, O's and Yankees. So one of the things that I do every day, and if you've read my articles lately, you've seen me get into this a little more because of how bad the pitching options have been generally. But I look at specific stats over a time period to determine if someone is hot or not in recent form, as well as looking at how they've been doing over the season. And I do 14 days with pitchers so that I get like the last 2 starts, maybe 3 if it's really rare. And then for batters, I do 7 days so that, again, you see like if they're currently hot, riding any streaks or anything like that. And if you look at the last 14 days and the advanced stats for pitchers, the worst 2 pitchers that we have going today are David Hess for the Orioles and Jonathan Loaisiga for the Yankees, meaning that this is a bats game. If you are playing on a site that has the Yankees-Orioles game, and again, I'm not sure if any of them do, I think that the Orioles are going to be a very, very sneaky stack. That would supplant the Phillies and anybody else. There are some, I've talked about it. The Orioles are not a good team. I don't think anyone is going to make a legitimate claim that the Orioles are a good team, but they have some legitimately good bats. VR is a good hitter. Smith Jr. has been on fire, and he's a good hitter. Mancini is a legitimately good hitter. Wilkerson's not great, but he is underpriced for the way he's been hitting. Let me look here. If I do, see, they have prices on FanDuel. So that makes me think that this game is on the FanDuel slate. So if you are playing FanDuel, I would be all over these bats here. You could take a chance on Chris Davis at 2,500. I'm not saying I love it, but 2,500 for a dude that just hit a home run Chris Davis is a streaky dude. This might be one of those times when he gets a few home runs in a week and then he hits 0 for the next month again. That's what Chris Davis does. So it's definitely worth, given the pitching options today, spending up on a pitcher and then taking these bats. I also think that the Yankees are good, especially with Aaron Hicks projected to come back. I think that they are underpriced for their upside. If you're playing on a FanDuel, apparently, that has this game on it, I think that the ownership is going to be deflated because of the rain chance, but they should be able to play a full game without any problem. If anything, it'll be a delay for an hour, and it's going to be cold, but if you look at the radars, the system that's hitting the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic that's been hitting it since yesterday should be out of Philadelphia by 5 or 6 o'clock and out of the New York area by 7 or 8 o'clock at the latest. So I would expect that game to start delayed, but have no problem getting its run. So if you're looking at the FanDuel prices, you have Sanchez under 4,000, Hicks 3,500, Frazier 3,700, LeMahieu 3,600. Oh, okay. Thank you, Chris Bach. He says that it's only on their all-day slate, not on the main slate. Okay. Generally, when this site has pricing, it means that it's on the main slate and it's not on a different slate. So that is my error. So never mind. I don't know if there's any site that has this on it, but if you are playing it, load up on the bats because I don't want anything with pitching. But that being said, I won't waste any more time. Thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate the information. Okay, so the next game is Milwaukee and Philly. I just recently touched on this. The weather is going to be a concern for people, although it shouldn't be. And that is going to lower ownership. And I believe that gives us a chance to get on some people that might be underowned or ignored because of it. So I think that both sides' bats are what I would look at here, even though the weather conditions slightly boost pitching. I think that the bats are the safest thing because there is a chance, if you look at the radar, the rain moves out of Philly, and then there is another chunk of rain that develops over central Pennsylvania and starts to move like southeast and east into the Philadelphia area. And there's a chance that it dissipates when the sun goes down like it normally would. There's a chance that it hits more northeast as the front moves up. Which is something that happens frequently. Sorry, I love weather. I've been studying it like Mike Trout. That's why I love Mike Trout so much since I was a kid. So this is something that I really love talking about, and it's rare that I get to. Yeah, I don't know why they don't just start the contest at 6:30 since there's this new trend of games starting at 6:30. We've seen it. It started last year. I think it was the Indians that started playing games at 6:10 or so. Maybe it was the Reds. It was someone in Ohio that was doing it, I remember. And now this year we're seeing a few teams pushing the starts back into the 6 o'clock hour. Excuse me. So I think that it's certainly, we've seen one slate so far on DraftKings that started at 6:30, the main slate. And I think that we are going to start seeing that more and more. So while that's irrelevant today, that's something to consider in the future, that these games that we can ignore now, you're going to have to take a chance on. And that's going to be, a little harder because if there's injury news that they're waiting for or a starting pitcher that they're waiting for, like on one of the 10 o'clock games, we may not have a lineup that late. We often see when someone is like the baseball equivalent of questionable in a lineup, when someone is like day-to-day or nursing an injury and they don't know if they're going to be able to go today. That lineup comes out really, really late. So it's certainly possible that when the starting times move up, it's going to be tougher for us to know, but there's late slop everywhere. So we shouldn't really have a problem there. But I'm going to get back into the Phillies and the Brewers. Like I said, I think that this is a place where you can attack. Both Nola has been in good form recently. He's striking out people more. His ERA is 1.54, although his FIP is 3.28, and his WHIP is 1.20, which means he's still letting people on base. But his BABIP is 3.10, so it's not like he's getting lucky when people are putting balls in play. Aaron Nola has been pitching better. Part of that is going to be a function of Oh, that's the wrong thing. Part of that is going to be a function of the opponents he's going against, and I want to go into the specifics there. So please give me 1 second here because I had the wrong thing open. Nola. So Nola went against Detroit a couple starts ago, and then he had a really good start against St. Louis, even though he gave up a home run. He only gave up 3 hits, struck out 7. But the really good thing that I wanted to mention, because I wasn't 100% sure if I remembered this, his last start against St. Louis, who was a good team who was hitting well at that time. You know, he got over 100 pitches in 6 innings, which I would want to see more for that amount of pitches. But he struck out 7, 8 ground balls, 1 fly ball. Now, when Nola is at his best, he's getting strikeouts and ground balls. He's one of those pitchers. He keeps the ball low in the zone effectively. We've seen a trend of power pitchers moving up in the zone to combat the way pitchers have normally pitched. It throws batters off, and it also helps to establish like a curveball or anything that breaks up in the zone. If you saw Mikolas's start the other day, you saw him do that really effectively with people having no idea if the high fastball was going to become a curveball, which is absolutely nuts. But when Nola is effective, he's working the bottom of the zone. He's not like a DeGrom or a Scherzer who's going to be able to go up as much. So when you see Nola, you know, the starts before that, 5 fly balls, 6 fly balls, 4 fly balls, we were seeing him not in the form that Nola was in last year. So the fact that he is starting to get those ground balls does give me hope. However, again, I think that even the slight chance of a delay and the fact that there are some other pitchers that I like today in the same price range, the fact that the Brewers are an amazing offensive team who are looking great recently, and because of the weather, they're going to be under-owned. I think that I would be much more a fan of going with Nola, of going with the Brewers bats against Nola here. I think that that'll buck ownership. And again, with the slight risk, I don't think it's a great risk, but with the slight risk of a delay in that Philly game, I think that, you know, God forbid Nola goes the 3 innings and then the rain comes for 45 minutes and they decide not to risk it. The bats are going to be fine. Nola is not. And Freddie Peralta, if you decide to play him for some reason, is not. So I would be a much bigger fan of going against the field. I think that they are 2 of the best potential teams today in terms of offense, regardless of what Vegas says. Hello, Grace. How's it going? Thank you for joining me. But I'm a big fan of these bats. I think that especially, again, given the pricing, these are 2 teams that you really can get some great value on that'll help you get more expensive pitching. Specifically on DraftKings, Travis Shaw is going to be back batting 5th, 2,600. 2,600. That's DraftKings, right? That's not FanDuel 2,600. That is going to let you put in whoever you want. And that, you know, if you want to go up to a Grandal for 4,000, a Kane who's been hot for 4,100, that's not going to be crazy. There's no like 50, well, apart from Yelich, it's not like a glut of $5,400 people like you would find on like a Red Sox or an Astros team. You have a good potent offense, but they focus the price increase into one player. So you have the ability to get, again, a priced down play against Nola, who's been looking good. So again, I don't think this is a slam dunk. This is a GPP play, but I think that it's going to buck ownership, and they're going to be underrated today, given their recent form especially, and their ceiling. And then Freddie Peralta. So I saw a report from a Brewers beat writer last night that said that Freddie Peralta is supposed to get the start today. Freddie Peralta has been listed as the starter on DraftKings, but a couple of the other sites I use that do lineup projections and stuff don't have Peralta yet. So I'm going to assume that that the information I have is correct, and Freddie Peralta is going to be the starter. Freddie Peralta in the main slate is the worst pitcher recently. If you look, he's had decent strikeouts, the 8K per 9, but he's walked 5 batters per 9 innings, which is terrible. That's reflected in his whip of 1.78. His ERA is 6, and his FIP is 5.89. So it's not like the ERA is a function of him getting unlucky. He has just been absolute dog shit lately. And, you know, he is also someone that, let me dig in here to see if it's extreme or just normal splits, but I believe he's an extreme normal splits guy. Peralta is indeed an extreme normal splits guy. So I think that, again, you are doing yourself a grave disservice by ignoring the bats here. They are dramatically underpriced. First of all, Bryce Harper, who, again, no one's going to say that he's been having a good year. No one's going to say that he's living up to the value in his contract, because that is ludicrous. No one could argue that in good faith unless they're a Phillies fan. And granted, even though I'm a Mets fan, I am completely objective, and I'm one of the people that doesn't mind Bryce Harper. I think he plays hard. He's a hell of a player. And, while I can't root for him because I don't want the teams he's on to win, because I want the Mets to win, as an individual player, I have no problem when he succeeds. I'm not rooting against him, just like I'm not rooting against any of the Phillies because Chase Utley's not on the team anymore. And, this is a good crop of kids led by McCutchen that plays the game really hard and plays the game the right way. And, because of that, I think that they will continue to have success in the NL East, no matter who the opponent. Granted, if there's an ace pitcher, these guys will strike out a ton. But Freddie Peralta is not an ace pitcher, and I don't think we really need to worry about him. So again, we have McCutchen 4,100, Segura 4,300, Harper, a lefty going against Freddie Peralta, 4,400 for Bryce Harper. Rhys Hoskins, an extreme reverse splits guy, meaning he's much better against righties, 5,400, but he's had an OPS over 1,000 like every single week-long thing that I've done on him. He has been hot for a month. He is one of the most underrated hitters in the game. He is one of the best hitters in the game. And I think that because of Bryce Harper, he is flying under the radar constantly, both in the national media and in DFS. So Rhys Hoskins is always one of my favorite plays. Real Muto is only 4,100. While I love to pay down for catchers, that is a great bat for 4,100, batting 5 in a lineup that could score more runs than anybody else today. As of right now, they are tied for the second most projected runs at 4.8. So again, it's not like they're going to be devoid of runs, and I think the weather is going to push ownership down. Then number 6, and this is another great one, Odubel Herrera, another lefty, who is a great underrated power hitting lefty, going against Freddie Peralta, who can't get lefties out, for 3,700. This game has a ton of value in it. And I think that, again, the ownership is going to be far too low given the fact that people freak out or get overly concerned about weather. And I think that they're doing themselves a grave disservice. There are some really, really key bats here who have looked really great lately, going against a bad pitcher, especially on the Phillies side, that are grossly underpriced for that game. Next up, we are looking at the Astros and the Tigers. Let me see. No questions there. No more questions there. All righty. Next up, we have Astros and Tigers, which is Peacock versus Boyd. So I said earlier that I think that the Tigers are one of my sneaky stacks today, K through 9. He's walking a few too many people. His whip's 1.31, which isn't great, but he's, again, as I talked about before with someone else, his BABIP is 345, which means that he's not getting lucky on the balls in play. That is going to go down to be more along the lines of his normal average. And the fact that he's been unlucky is reflected in the fact that his ERA has been 5.91, but his FIP is 2.83, which is a dramatic difference. That's a swing of over 3. So that's just, it shows you that he is doing much better than it looked like he's doing. However, with Matthew Boyd has been fucking fantastic lately, pardon my French. A K9 of 10.3. His walks per 9 is 0.69, which is ridiculous. His whip is 0.69 as well. Ridiculous. His FIP is 2.5. Matthew Boyd, give me a second, Chris. Let me finish on this game and then I'll get to that question. Matthew Boyd has been one of the best pitchers in the game over the last couple of weeks. I think that I've talked about this in my articles. I've talked about this on video several times. There are some teams that you don't want to be a lefty against. The Astros is one of them, and Matt Boyd is a lefty going against the Astros. But part of that is predilected on Altuve playing. As nice as Aldimas Diaz is, he is an extreme reverse splits guy. So it's actually worse for the Astros against a lefty when Diaz is playing second base than when Altuve is. Granted, anybody besides Altuve playing second base for you is going to be a downgrade, but it's a significant downgrade against lefties, especially given Altuve is an extreme normal splits hitter, meaning he crushes lefties about as good as anybody in the game, and I'm not exaggerating on that. And Diaz is significantly better against right-handed hitters, which means he's not nearly as good against lefties. So while Springer and Bregman are a tough 1-2 at the top of the order, Brantley is not someone who we have to worry about against lefties. Correa has been getting hot lately, but he has not been, his OPS has been around 900. He hasn't gotten over 1,000. His WOBA hasn't gotten over 400, which a lot of the other guys on this team has. Gurriel's been heating up, but again, I think that he is enough hit or miss that he can be gotten for strikeouts by a crafty guy like Boyd. And then the bottom of the order, White, Diaz, Chirinos, and Marisnick, I'm not really worried about. So I think that Boyd is going to be one of the sneakier pitchers today at 8,800. Again, it's a GPP play, much like the Brewers' bats are. It's not someone that I'm going to lock in. There are a few pitchers here that I am a huge fan of, and I will get to them in due time. But I think that Boyd for 8,800 has the upside of almost anybody else on this slate. I would say he's in the second tier behind like a Barrios and a Ray. But he has a fantastic upside especially for the value that he's going to provide. And his recent form has him as one of the best pitchers in the game recently. Additionally, as I talked about earlier, asked me the best GPP stack of the day. Peacock is a good pitcher. The Tigers are projected to score less than 4 runs. Again, this is not something that is going to be an absolute lock, but the Tigers have been in good form recently. That's really fun. And Chase Matone, do you think Kikuchi will break out the pine tar hat again for the A's? It depends how cold it is. If he needs the grip, then definitely. That's so funny. I love how worked up people get about that too. I mean, I know it's illegal, but everybody does it because they can't grip the ball. That's really funny, James. Man, you got a good laugh out of me. That hurts though, so try not to do that. That hurt my hip. Oh boy. Okay, so let me get back into it. The Tigers bats are so cheap on DraftKings that you can fit in 2 of the expensive pitchers and get 4 or 5 Tigers bats and still have a functional lineup, like a well-constructed lineup. Nico Goodrum, 3,500. Kristen Stewart, who I love today, 3,700. Castellanos, the best hitter on this team, 3,800. Miggy, who's been on fire lately, not in terms of extra base hits. His ISO isn't good, but he has been making good contact and getting on base a ton, 3,100. Ronnie Rodriguez, who had 2 home runs in the first game of the doubleheader yesterday and has dual eligibility at 2 of the weakest positions, second base and shortstop, 4,200. He's the most expensive player, and he is absolutely worth it. Candelario, who had a home run yesterday, 3,100. Harrison is back, 3,200. If he can find his form, the reason they signed him and, coming back from the injury list, he should be fine. Grainer, 2,800. He is a talented rookie who hasn't lived up to it. And then Jacoby Jones, 2,600. I don't like playing him, but again, 2,600. These are plays that you can stack in hopes that they get some points from a Peacock that has been, that's funny, from a Peacock that has been letting people on base a ton and has a worse defense behind him without Altuve as well. So while, I've talked about this in the past as well, ERA is an imperfect stat. I don't think anyone's going to argue that. ERA is still an effective measure of the current conditions that you are in. And going on the road with the wind blowing out at 10 miles an hour against a team that's been hitting home runs lately, I just would rather, again, take the Tigers bats at that cheap price and allow me to fit in more of the expensive pitchers that I'm going to want. So I think that covers that game. Both pitchers have been in fine form, so I can understand playing both, but I would rather play Boyd than Peacock, regardless of anything else. So next game up is Angels and Twins. Angels and Twins is Tyler Skaggs versus Jose Berrios. So let me get to Berrios here real quick because there is, you know what? I have to do that at Baseball Reference. Hold on. Let me do that at Baseball Reference because they have my favorite home and away splits. Berrios. Jose Berrios's home away splits, if I remember correctly, are stark to say the least. Let's see here. Splits. Okay. Yeah. So at home, he has pitched 225 innings for a whip of 1.08, strikeout per nine of 9.5. He's given up 86 earned runs, 92 runs for an ERA of 3.43. They don't have the advanced stats on this. If I look on FanDuel, I'm sure, Fangraphs, I'm sure I can find that. But I like the home and away and then the game level splits here. And then away, 224.1 innings, so 1 inning less on the road. His whip is 1.4, which is 0.4 more, which is tremendous. His strikeouts per nine is 8.1, which is a decrease of almost 1.5 per nine. He's given up 43 home runs compared to 16 at home, 126 earned runs compared to 86 at home, 133 runs compared to 92 at home. His ERA is over 5 on the road and 3.4 at home. So Berrios is one of those dudes that, while I'm not the biggest fan of home and away splits, I think that people overvalue them. And I think that when you look at the Rockies, it's really important. When a sample size gets this significant, that's not a fluke. It's someone who feels much more comfortable pitching in Minnesota, and today the game is in Minnesota. So that being said, Berrios is going to be one of my favorite plays on the day. This is an Angels team who looks a lot more nasty lately with Ohtani back. Trout had been cold as ice, and Baltimore was the get right spot I thought it would be. This is a lineup that is not bad. The Angels. La Stella has been hitting well. Trout and Ohtani have been. Ohtani is going to heat up, but he's a threat no matter what. Simmons has been hot. Pujols just had a 2-home run game. Calhoun has been incredibly hot for like a month. Lucroy has been hot. And then Cozart. So I'm not a fan of playing Cozart, but he's 2,200. Again, that's not on FanDuel. That's on DraftKings. 2,200 for someone that you can put at third base or shortstop lets you fit in whoever you want. You can play Berrios for 9,400 with his 30 DKP plus upside and still put Cozart in there for 2,200 because who the hell knows if he gets a hit or a walk, he gets 5 points and you're like, damn, he got double value. That's not terrible. Hopefully he can get more than that when the bullpen comes in, if you do play Berrios, but 2,200, there is some insane pricing out there today that we can take advantage of and help us fit in whatever pitchers we want. We just have to get a little more crafty with the one-offs. But again, Jose Berrios at home doesn't let people on base, strikes out a ton of people. This is an Angels team that's been hot, but they've been hot against weaker teams, and this is a Twins team that, apart from Berrios, I think that we can count on the Angels in the next few games, but Berrios is a fantastic pitcher, especially at home, and I'm a big fan of him today. He is one of the lock pitchers. I'm not going to, one of my favorite 2 pitchers that I'm going to try to build my lineups around. Excuse me. And then Skaggs for the Angels has not been in great form recently. His K9 has only been 7.8 or 7.6, excuse me. I was looking at a different number, his KBB. His BB9 is 4.2, which is terrible. That's reflected in the whip of 1.59. Not great. His ERA is 7.59, which is offset by the FIP of 3.11, but his XFIP is right in the middle, over 5. So that means that, while he has gotten somewhat unlucky, he's still pitched like dog shit. So I think that when you are trying to find bats that the Twins are going to go underrated, I think that we have, again, some great bats here, some great value. Cruz might not play. If he does not play, then we're going to get even better value, and the Twins total is still going to be 5. So Garver leading off at 4,700 is fantastic. I know it's tough to pay that for a catcher. I wish he had dual eligibility, but it's still a leadoff dude as a nice righty going against a lefty. Polanco, great. I would expect that if Cruz is out, Astudillo plays, and Astudillo is one of my favorite right-handed batters against lefties. That dude is completely underrated. Marwin Gonzalez was cold as anything to start the year, and he has really woken up lately. CJ Cron, ditto. He has looked fantastic lately. So there are a bunch of really solid Twins plays against Tyler Skaggs. I think that people are going to, again, we find this a lot. People are desperate to play expensive bats, and because of that, they wind up taking undue risk at pitcher, and it winds up costing them. There's, every once in a while, someone of Tyler Skaggs' caliber is going to put up 25, 30 DKP. Mike Fiers got in his second no-hitter. Homer Bailey is two no. Is it Homer? No. Is it Homer Bailey that has 2 no-hitters? I don't know. There's a few horrible pitchers who can get no-hitters. It happens. Tyler Skaggs could have a great game, but he is not a good pitcher. And people are going to see the 7,300, see the potential, and he's going to go far over-owned at that price. I think that you're doing yourself a disservice when you have better pitching options to go down at pitcher and take extra risk for bats that have the same zero floor as anybody else. There's not like a team in Coors Field. There's not, Houston going against the worst pitcher in baseball. There's nothing like that today that would warrant you having to sacrifice really good pitching options for lackluster pitching options with a slight chance of an upside. So give me the Twins pitcher, Berrios. Give me the Twins bats. Next game is the Indians and the White Sox. Now, this is a fun one. Shane Bieber and Reynaldo Lopez. Reynaldo Lopez has so much potential, and we saw that because he got like 46 strikeouts in one game the other day. But apart from that, he has been a terrible pitcher this season. If you look at just the last 2 weeks, his K9 is only 6.5. That's not dominant. He's walking over 3 people per 9. His whip is almost 2. That's abysmal. His FIP is 5.39, XFIP 5.72. Apart from Peralta, he is the second worst pitcher going today. And I think that, again, people are going to look at upside, which is fair in GPP. If you're doing a mass entry, you want to take a chance on a Reynaldo Lopez, be my guest. No one is going to argue with that upside. But don't fool yourself into thinking that he's safe or that, more than 50% of the time, the dude is going to blow it out of the water, because maybe 10% of the time he's going to give you a start that'll win you something. The rest of the time, he is looking at a possibility of going negative, and that is going to kill any lineup that you have where you use him. So if you're doing one lineup, no thank you. Even if you're doing like 3 lineups, I would rather take a chance at moving around a few of the other better pitchers and then putting in different bats with them than on doing a Reynaldo Lopez. Because again, while he does have upside, this is an Indians team that with Lindor back is much better than people are giving him credit for. On top of that, let's see where they are. Yeah, they're striking out about in the middle of the pack, but much less lately with Lindor back. So that is also something to keep a note of. That Reynaldo Lopez, who hasn't been striking people out lately as it is, except for that one start, is going against a team that is striking out less lately. Lindor, Kipnis, Ramirez, all these guys are also dramatically underpriced, meaning a team that is projected to score almost 5 runs today. You don't even have a single person over 5,000. Lindor's 4,700. The next highest is Jose Ramirez and Carlos Santana, 4,300. Both have been cold. And then everybody else is 4,000 and under. Kipnis, 3,600. Cargo, 37. Bowers, 38. Naquin, 37. Plawecki, who should be catching, 35. If he's not, I think the other catcher is under 3,000, if I remember correctly, but he should have the day off because he played yesterday. But regardless, all these bats for a 5-run total against Reynaldo Lopez. I think that Reynaldo Lopez, again, due to the desperation of people trying to get expensive bats in, you can take these Cleveland stack instead as a way of not only leveraging yourself against the field, but as a way of, taking the smart play that is underpriced against an overrated pitcher. Just because he had one good game does not mean he's good. You're not going to start playing Mike Fiers every time he pitches, and I'll get into that later. So again, this is an Indians offense that I absolutely love today, especially considering the pricing. The pitching, though, that's the tricky part. So Bieber has been very hit or miss this year, but lately he has been significantly better over the last couple of weeks. While he hasn't been one of the best pitchers in the game, his K9 is 9, which is exactly what we would want. He's only walking about 1 person per 9, which is fantastic. His whip is about 1.1, not terrible. And his ERA, 2.57, FIP, 3.40, and XFIP, 3.53. All of those are fantastic. I have no problem at all taking a $9,000 Shane Bieber as one of my 3 best pitchers today. I absolutely love him. I don't think he is as safe as a Robbie Ray or as a Berrios. I would rather pay the extra couple hundred for Berrios than Bieber. But that being said, that is a lot of B's. Man, alliteration is fun. That being said, I would definitely prefer to take Bieber over every other option on the slate but Robbie Ray and Berrios, and that is not even close. It's not even close. Not even close. So again, this is going to be one of those slates where we are going to want to pay up for pitching. So having those stacks like Cleveland and Detroit that are functional, could score a whole bunch of runs and are grossly underpriced are really important to find. But again, there's a lot of underpriced people today. So regardless of who you want to play, if you do the one-offs well, again, with like Cozart at 22, you'll be able to make it work no matter what. Second to last, the penultimate game, the Pirates at Arizona. It is going to be 93 degrees with the wind blowing out, and it doesn't matter because the roof will be closed. If you see that roof is open for some reason, I doubt it will be. But if that roof is open, oh man, play the bats in this game. 93 with the wind blowing out is summer weather, and that is when the balls really travel. Granted, the humidity isn't high, and I'd rather have the humidity really high, but that is a discussion for another day. Okay. I will get to that question after. And then, Chris, I definitely do have to get to your question as well tomorrow. So we have Kingham going against Robbie Ray. As I already talked about, I love Robbie Ray today. He is my favorite pitcher. I would rather have him than Berrios. I think that people are going to hesitate playing him because of the gap between him and the second most expensive pitcher. We see that a lot of times, especially given that he's not a Scherzer, he's not a DeGrom, he's not a household name. People are hesitant to pay for people that aren't household names when we get to that high on the price scale. But Robbie Ray is who Robbie Ray is, and he is someone with a tremendous K upside. And this is a Pirates team with Marte and Polanco back that he'll be able to get some good strikeouts on. His K9 over the last couple weeks is 14.3. Holy shit. That is double some of the pitchers that is double Reynaldo Lopez. That is double what Jose Barrios has done over the last 14 days. That is staggering, absolutely staggering. Unfortunately, his walks through 9 is 4.8, which is, the whip of 1.41 is worrisome, but whip means less when you have strikeout stuff. I've explained this in my articles before. If you let people on base, that could be a function of how you pitch. If you know I'm going to walk Mike Trout because I can get the next guy out easier, then you walk Mike Trout and you strike out the next guy. And that's what Robbie Ray does and what Robbie Ray can do. When there's a good batter, he pitches around the zone. And when there's a poor batter, he attacks the shit out of them and gets a strikeout. His ERA is 0.79, and you might say with a whip of 1.41, there's no way that's not a mirage. But his FIP is 1.52. His xFIP is 2.34. Oh, so sorry. I apologize. Excuse me. I don't even know where that came from. I never sneeze. Even when I'm sick, I never sneeze. I don't have allergies. I apologize. My apologies. I hope that wasn't too loud. But again, a K9 of 37%. 37% of the batters that go against him are striking out. And this is, again, with a BABIP of 400. So, again, give me Robbie Ray. I think he's the best pitcher of the day. I love Barrios at home, but no one has the strikeout upside that Robbie Ray has today. There's just no way anyone is going to be even close, unless they throw like a complete game shutout. But you can't really factor that in. I'm talking about pure talent, pure skill. If someone throws 7 or 8 innings, no one has the upside that Robbie Ray has, again, unless they throw a complete game shutout. But that's, who the hell, you can't factor that in. That's like Mike Fiers getting a no-hitter. And then the next pitcher is Kingham, who's going to be going against the Diamondbacks on the other side here. Kingham is like a worse Robbie Ray. I don't know how to describe it. So his K9 over the last couple weeks is 11.4. That's amazing. Amazing. That is someone that we are going to be able to use in the right circumstances. As I've explained, strikeouts are king. If you are looking to get points, a strikeout is worth almost as much as a win. So you get a bunch of strikeouts. Doesn't matter if you win or lose, you're going to get the 20-something points that we want. Kingham gets a lot of strikeouts, but his walks per 9 is 7-11. Like, that dude takes a big gulp every time he pitches because his walks for 9 are 7-11. That is insane. His whip is 2.05. That is insane. And while his ERA and FIP are significantly different, his ERA is 8.53, which is indeed a function of the poor defense behind him. So again, we can talk about fielding independent statistics all we want, but guess what? He's pitching with the defense behind him. He's not pitching with great robots that are doing the league average or better than the league average. He's pitching with the same shitty defense that got him an ERA of 8.5. So again, that's another rant that I go on occasionally. Every stat means something. Even if there are better stats that show you how a pitcher is doing better, that doesn't mean that everything else is irrelevant. And people who tell you that they are snobs. It's like the people who say, like, oh, you like Nirvana and you also listen to rap. It's that kind of asshole. Like, ignore people like that. There is a place for everything as long as you know what it means. ERA is important because it shows you a function of how bad the team is behind him or how unlucky he can get. And he's gone unlucky, but that doesn't mean that his luck's going to change. He does not have a good D behind him. So I think that, again, if you're looking at the way the slate plays out, I think that people are going to be desperate for the cheap pitching. I think that people are going to be hesitant to pay up for both pitchers. A lot of people like to do 1-1 and then take a chance on the lower price pitcher. Kingham at 6,500 is going to have one of the highest ownerships on the slate, but he cannot, apart from striking them out, he's not getting people out. When the ball's in play, it's hit hard and it's hitting the gap and he walks a ton of people. So I think that the Diamondbacks have the highest projected total of any team on the slate. They are not my favorite stack, as I've talked about, but they are absolutely one of my favorite stacks. I could honestly, if you want to make the argument they're the best, I can see it. But the fact that almost everyone here is like 5,000 means I'm significantly less inclined to play them because I want to fit in the two expensive pitchers today. So, Dyson 5,100, that's way too much for him. Escobar 5,000, I love, but 5,000. Peralta 5,100, I love, but Jesus. Adam Jones 47, Christian Walker 4,900, Kettle Marte 5,200. I don't know if I can pay all of that and then still get enough pitching. That being said, I would absolutely love to take a one-off or two in this game. My favorite my favorite is Marte, far and away. Marte is on fire lately. Love the dual position eligibility. No one is going to pay 5,200 for him, or very few people are going to pay 5,200 for him. I love Peralta and I love Escobar. Kingham is going to be got by lefties today, and those three dudes are going to make him pay more than anybody else. So what I am going to try to do, and I've put together some base lineups, but I always like to do it again after I give this analysis in case I find something new or discover something while I'm going over everything with you guys. I think that my strategy today, and this is even before I cover the last game, which tells you what needs to be said about the last game. My strategy today is going to be getting Ray and Berrios if I can, and then I am going to try to do a 5-man or a 4-man from Cleveland or Detroit, and then my mini stack from either the D-backs or Houston or Philadelphia. I think those are the best plays because I'm doing a single entry. I, again, think that you can go plenty of other places, but I think that I'm going to reserve the expensive bats today for the mini stack because I think that you need to get the expensive pitchers in. And if you ignore the expensive pitchers, you're doing it at your own risk. If you look at what I did yesterday, I cashed a bunch yesterday. I played good pitchers both times. I think, what was it? The Astros was the afternoon. I think the Astros was the early game. I played Giolito and Snell, who both got like 30 DKP, and then I did a mini with Bregman and Springer in it. So even regardless of whoever the hell else I played, I was in the money. Like if you play the right mini stack with the right pitchers, you're going to do yourself a hell of a service, more so than trying to fit in a bunch of crappy dudes or trying to fit in a really shitty pitcher because I really, really want to get all these bats in. It's going to cost yourself in baseball in the long run. That is not an effective strategy. I've already thought about this. So the paid member video, I'm going to do a paid member video tomorrow, and I'm going to talk about the importance of pitching and the price of pitching in your stacks. I'm going to spend, I hope, about a half hour without doing specific analysis on just the theory and the importance of how pitchers are priced and how to put them in your lineup and what it means for bats and stacks and everything else. I think that that is something that people ignore. I've tried to give you some insight into what I'm going to talk about as I've gone through this analysis today, but I'm going to get pretty deep into it, or that's my plan, assuming I can sit up and talk tomorrow. And then the last game is the A's and the Mariners. Mike Fiers is, he's shitty. He threw a no-hitter, but that doesn't mean he's good, because he's not. So I'm a fan of taking the Mariners bats. I just don't like the Mariners bats as much as I like other bats. If you're doing multi-entry, add the Mariners to your list of bats to play. Excuse me. I also like Bruce and Narvaez as one-offs, especially given their recent form. I think they're both, it's certainly possible that both / either hit a home run. Excuse me. Geez, you'd think I just had some soda. So I think the Mariners are great, but I think that there are other better stacks that'll be less owned. I'm not playing Fires because I'm not a masochist. Masochist. And then Kikuchi, Kikuchi must have spent some time with Pineda lately. Kikuchi is a good pitcher, but I don't trust his strikeout upside, and I don't trust him as a lefty going against Oakland. I like the Oakland offense against righties, especially with lefties, especially with Chris Davis back, far, far too much. And that's even assuming that Matt Olson plays first base instead of like a Kendrys Morales. I am definitely a fan. Fegley's looked fantastic. Chapman, Piscotty. This is a team that has been hitting relatively well lately. They're not, the Astros lately, but they've been hitting relatively well lately. Kikuchi is one of those deceptive starters that focuses more on having an interesting delivery that throws you off and gets you off time, and then having stuff that moves out of the zone. So if there is a patient team like Oakland certainly is, that doesn't strike out a lot like Oakland certainly does not, he's going to have a lot of trouble walking people. We see this a lot with pitchers that have profiled. What do you mean? You know what I mean, though. Like, I don't know what that means. It makes me think I said something wrong. But he's someone that, yeah, the stuff moves a lot. It's almost like he's using some kind of foreign substance. His stuff moves a lot, but it moves out of the zone. So if you have a patient team that lets the ball move out of the zone, the ump calls it a ball, you get walks. So when Kikuchi is going against a high strikeout team, I'm really going to like him a lot. I'm going to jump all over him if he's going against like Texas, especially a high strikeout team that's weak against lefties. But against this Oakland team, no thank you. So while I don't feel strongly, I don't want to take like the Oakland bats against Kikuchi. I think Kikuchi's enough he keeps the ball on the ground enough, but I'm not taking the pitcher either. That's one of like the few stayaways that I have today. So I'm going to sum up what I said again, and then I'm going to get into the two questions that I have hanging here. So my favorite pitchers of the day are running away, Ray and Berrios. And then the next tier down, I would have Bieber and Boyd. And then I don't really want to play any other pitchers today. Period. That's it. Everything else is too risky or in too bad a spot. So because of that, my favorite stacks today are going to be Cleveland and Detroit in terms of the price, because the pricing of those guys and their upside, especially Cleveland, is going to let you fit two expensive pitchers in while still maintaining a full stack to maximize your upside and maximize the additive nature of stacking, which again is why you stack. You want these dudes to add points to one another. You don't want people that are disparate that you have to assume they can get by on their own. You want people that can knock each other in, and as the rallies go, the points go up. And I think that certainly Cleveland and Detroit have a chance of doing that. As nice as the Houston bullpen is, I do worry about Detroit, but my God, they're like all under 4,000. You could do whatever you want. And then in terms of the expensive stacks, I think I would order it Arizona first, followed by Philadelphia, followed by Houston, followed by Minnesota, followed by Milwaukee. If I'm looking at the mini stacks today, those are the ones that I think I'm more a fan of playing. Now, let me get into the questions here. So, Chris asked, on a big slate like tomorrow, do you factor in how due a hitter is for a tater? I would say no. I factor in how often a player hits home runs, and then I factor in if someone is cold or hot, and I know, if people are streaky or not. I'm trying to look up the exact schedule for tomorrow, so please bear with me while I do that. I used to have a link for baseball schedule, but oh no, that's on something else. Okay, so I'm going to go to the ESPN and then do the baseball schedule from there, and then I'll be able to pull some examples of who you could be talking about. So let's see here. Okay, so there's a few options that we can talk about here. So if someone averages a home run every 12 at bats and they haven't gotten a home run in 25 at bats, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to get another home run soon. That is the gambler's fallacy. If you assume that the coin is going to be heads because it's been tails a whole bunch of times. But that being said, I do think that you can factor streaks in. So when you start seeing people making contact and striking out less, so let's take a Joey Gallo. If Joey Gallo goes on one of his cold streaks where he's not getting on base, he's striking out all the time, and then over the course of 2 or 3 games, you see him, his batting average increases. He's getting more walks. He got a flare single. When they start making contact again, then I assume that they're due. So I don't like to play the game where this guy has been cold for a week. That sounds right to me. I think on day 9 he's going to be super hot. Like, this is going to be the day he snaps back. I don't mind doing that if the pitching matchup is really in favor of him. If again, I'm going to bring up like a Rhys Hoskins, even though he's never cold. If Rhys Hoskins had one of the worst weeks of his life, let's say he was super cold for 2 weeks, and he was going against Marco Estrada, right? Marco Estrada is the first person I think of when I think of a righty with reverse splits as a pitcher. And Rhys Hoskins is one of the best extreme reverse splits righties in the game. And as I've talked about in the past, that's an additive effect. A reverse splits righty going against a reverse splits righty is awesome for the batter. That is as good a matchup as you can get. You want the pitcher and the batter splits to function with each other. You don't want them to fight each other. That is how you're going to find the best matchup. So if Rhys Hoskins was cold for 2 weeks, he hadn't gotten a hit, he hadn't gotten a walk, he hadn't gotten on base, and he was going against Marco Estrada, I wouldn't say he was due in the way that you're saying. I would say that the matchup is good enough that I'll take a risk that he'll get out of his slump. So I hope that explains how I approach it. I think that recent form is really important, and baseball is a sport of failure and a sport of streaks. So I think that is important to consider, that you can always, say this guy's due, but that's rolling the dice. That's more of a fallacy and doing yourself a disservice than to play smart matchups every day. I can look at, I'm going to say one more thing about this before I go on to James's final question that is not DFS related. Take a look at Mike Trout. Mike Trout going into the Baltimore series. God, I'm sorry. I have to close my eyes because I have to see the picture of it in my head. Photographic memory is fun sometimes. So Mike Trout going into the Baltimore series over his last 7 games had a batting average of 125, an OPS of like 435. His ISO was 125 as well, and his WOBA was 237. Oh man, my brain's funny. So Mike Trout was about as cold as it gets going into the Baltimore series. Now, you could say that going against Baltimore, he's he's due because he's been cold for a week. But I think it's more that he was in a good matchup, in a good spot, and he's a good hitter. So I think that due is anytime you think someone's due, it's a gambler's fallacy. Like the coin is due to be heads. I don't think that you can ever safely assume that. But I think that if you have a talented hitter who looks like he's getting hot, or you have a good hitter in an incredibly good matchup, then you can take the chance that they are not going to be cold anymore. I also think that someone not getting a home run in a long time could be a function of injury or age or something else. So again, we can't assume that, just because, I can't even think of someone that's super old anymore. Just because, Yadi Molina had a home run per nine, a home run every 11 at bats last year, it doesn't mean that it's going to be 11 this year. And just because he started out the first couple of weeks with a home run every 8 at bats doesn't mean that it's going to be that for the year. So I think that looking at that can do yourself a disservice when you should really be looking at recent form, matchups, splits, and all that other stuff. I hope that answered your question. If not, then I'll be doing more of these, and I will get into it as far as I can, whenever I can. I'm more than happy to talk to you guys about anything and everything, sports or not sports related, whenever you have a question. So, James, I love this question. Where would I trade Dom Smith? So, assuming that I am in no way going in the division, you can't, let's look at the teams that need a first baseman, right? That are a first baseman or a DH, I guess, because we're talking Dom Smith here. It's not like, he's going to light the world on fire. I think that Baltimore see, that's what I was thinking. I would love to trade him to like a Kansas City, and try to raid some of the coffers there. I think that Houston, believe it or not, would be a really good fit. They could really use another lefty power hitter. I don't think that, with Tyler White and Gurriel as the first baseman, I think Gurriel can also play third, and Dom Smith can DH. I would think that Dom Smith could do exceedingly well in Houston. And I think that they have enough pieces that they would be able to either trade back a functional, like a Tony Kemp, who's not great, but he's functional enough, or one of their prospects. But I think that, what the Mets would have to do, what the Mets are, what's going to have to happen is he's going to need to get some bats. He's going to need to play every day somewhere for a week or two and show that he can hit. Because if he doesn't, then we're not going to get VR for him unless we include someone else. We're not going to get a top prospect for him unless we include someone else. Like, we're going to need to. No. When I say raid the coffers, I mean like the minors. I don't mean like the shitty dudes in the majors. Maybe I'm using that term wrong, but I mean like we're getting the kids. I want to get some of the prospects that they have going now in the minors that they've been trying to build around. So I think that in order to do that, the Mets would have to play Dom Smith. And in order for Dom Smith to play, either Alonso's going to get hurt, which God forbid that happens, not worth increasing Smith's trade value, or he's going to have to play in a position in the outfield that he's not comfortable playing, like Mackey Sasser in right field, or Lucas Duda been left. The amount of Mets that have played out of their position. Mackey Sasser in right field was a fucking joke, but he couldn't throw back to the pitcher. Once you get the yips and you can't throw back to the pitcher, what are you going to do? I will say Mackey Sasser made one of the greatest catches I've ever seen in my life as a right fielder, a diving catch, but I can't even find that online because no one else is watching a random game and Mackie Sasser playing the outfield. So I think that Baltimore is a great option. I think Kansas City is a great option. I think that Houston is a great option. And I would really focus on AL teams because I don't think that anyone is going to see him as I think everyone would see his defense as more a liability than as a benefit. So they would try to get him in first at some point. So lefty first baseman's always nice. But I think that you want to give him the option of also being able to DH. I mean, there are some teams that are going for it that have some really shitty options at DH too. I mean, the Yankees can't stay healthy, but there's no way. Yeah. Anyway, all right. If anybody else has any questions, that would be fine. Otherwise, I'm over an hour and I'm going to go take some medicine because I am about to rip my own leg off. So have a beautiful day, everybody. I hope I did good with the pain and I tried my best. Best of luck tonight. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up on Flick or on Twitter or wherever. I'll do my best to answer. But otherwise, have a good day. Best of luck.